What's up again, everybody? Today we got a bit of a weird video, a bit of a weird deck to talk about. So ever since we had the Arcane Rising expansion, I have really enjoyed thinking about and tooling around with this guy, Visceri. Or is it Visceri? I don't know. It's probably Visceri because it's like a play on Viscera. So I guess we should just say Visceri from now on, but I can't help but say Visceri. I don't know. Putting the emphasis in the middle just feels good, so I may just keep doing it. I don't know. Anyway, I like the idea, and I like the tinkering that goes on with playing Visceri here. I got it. But I've never gotten to really scratch the itch of making one particular type of deck, and that is a Runechant OTK deck. Visceri here creates Runechants if you meet his requirement on his card, and a Runechant looks like this, of course. A Runechant is a little tiny token aura that just explodes and deals arcane damage whenever you attack with a weapon or just attack, period. So the goal, of course, of an OTK deck with Runechants would be to make enough Runechants or combine Runechants and an attack at some point to deal enough damage to kill someone. And I think the best way to accomplish this is to play in the Blitz format, because getting 40 damage in Runechants and in an attack is really difficult, but getting 20 damage is relatively easy, maybe? I don't know. I don't know if it's relatively easy, but it's certainly more approachable than getting 40. So I've put together a deck that can theoretically do this, and I'm putting theoretically in quotes because by the numbers it can OTK, but whether or not you actually do go about OTKing and end up having to OTK is another story. It is definitely set up to just kind of mainly do that one thing. So let's get into it. Of course, Visceri, Runeblade hero, young, 20 health, 4 intellect. This is shiny. This is my Buy a Box promo from way back in the day. Whenever you play a Runeblade card, if you first played another non-attack action card this turn, you create a Runechant token. So you can meet that requirement multiple times a turn, and that's part of the goal of this, is that we're going to meet that requirement as often as possible so that we can trigger and get as many Runechants as possible. Let's quickly go through the other pieces of equipment and weapon. Here's the Nebula Blade. I chose this one namely because what we're going to be doing with the deck, with the rest of the deck, we have the Reaping Blade in the side pool of equipment that we could play. It does offer you a slight less attack because we are going to meet this requirement just about every time, but it really hamstrings you for gaining health, and that is something that we could possibly be doing with this deck. So I picked the Nebula Blade instead. Pay 2, attack for 4 most of the time. Bloodsheath Skeleta, instant, destroy it. The next attack action card and non-attack action card you play this turn gains this card cost 1 less to play for each Runechant you control. This is a pretty good card. We're going to create a lot of Runechants, so we could play 2 free things on a turn. Crown of Dichotomy is here as well. It says action, destroy Crown of Dichotomy, put target Runeblade attack action and non-attack action card from your graveyard on top of your deck in any order. It also has Arcane Barrier 1, and that's really good as well. It can't block for anything, so that's something to consider. But being able to cycle some of the power creation cards for Runechants is a pretty powerful thing. Mage Master Boots is a really, really good card. Action, pay 1, destroy it. The next non-attack action card you play this turn gains Go Again, and that's huge for some giant generation turns. It also doesn't defend for anything, and that is kind of a bummer. As you can see, it says 0 defense right down there, but that's okay. Hopefully we have enough defense in the deck as well. And of course, no deck would be complete without running the granddaddy of them all, the Grasp of the Arknight. This is a cold foil version, so I have 48,000 sleeves on it so that it doesn't get damaged. Once per turn action, pay 2, create a Runechant token. This ability costs an additional 1 to activate for each Runechant you control. So oftentimes you're not actually using this to create a token unless you're doing it at the very beginning of the game. And if you are doing it at the very beginning of the game, you're not going to do it likely again, which is kind of funny, but it defends for 2, and that's pretty solid. So that is the main board. I will say this though, let me go grab it. I don't think I have it sitting out. I'm going to grab something real quick. Instead of running the Crown of Dichotomy, you very much could run a Hope Merchant's Hood in this. I've thought about this a lot. This deck is very cycle dependent. You want to like cycle cards to try and find the cards that you need or want in a specific time. And so using something like Hope Merchant's Hood to just shuffle up the cards in your hand, if you just get a hand that's unwieldy, into the deck and draw more cards to try and hope that you get what you need. You could run this. I could see it, and it'd be a fun way to use Hope Merchant's Hood. Also, by the way, this is like crazy to look at when it's shiny. It just looks, oh, you can't even tell. The three sleeves on this one get in the way. Let me see if I can. I just need to show this. If you've never seen this one in cold foil, it is just fantastic. It won't even do it. What if I got crazy? What if I got crazy? Oh ho 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 ho! Look at his coat. It just like springs to life. Love that. This has nothing to do with the video, but this is the quality content you come for here on DM Armada. Him taking out cards that are expensive and then making them shine. Okay, I'm putting all that back. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about how we're going to generate something like 20 tokens. We need like 20 Runechant tokens to win the game. If that's the win condition, then that's not too terribly hard. And I think part of the reason that this is such an interesting win condition to me is that it's arcane damage, and really the only way of blocking arcane damage is if your opponent's playing arcane barrier equipment, or if they've teched in arcane barrier cards or cards that block all sources of damage. And so it makes a really interesting win condition that I think you could cheese some games out with. So that's why I built this deck. Let me talk you through the whole thing. So spoiler alert, we have very few attack action cards in this deck, for better or for worse. That's just what I ran. But we have a metric ton of action cards. This is an insane amount of action cards, and it's kind of hilarious. I definitely do need to do some fine-tuning, but this is definitely my first pass. I've messed around with it just a little bit. The main thing we're going to hope to do is play Mordred Tide a lot. So we have Mordred Tide number 1 and 2 right behind it. Mordred Tide is insane. It's a Majestic from the Arcane Rising set. It defends for 3. It costs 0 to play, until the end of the turn if you'd create a Runechant token. Instead, create that many plus 1, and then it has go again. By the way, that is my proxy replacement for a Mordred Tide I don't own yet, so I'm hoping to get a second Mordred Tide sometime soon. And of course, if we're making Runechants, you have to play Read the Runes. I mean, literally, we play like every copy of Read the Runes that we can. We play 2 reds, we play 2 yellows, the shinier the better. We play 2 blues. The blues are like kind of suspect because obviously they only make 1 Runechant token, while the red makes 3, which is really good. But it doesn't matter because you combine that with Mordred Tide and it generates Runechant tokens like crazy. Plus, they're all Runeblade cards, so if you start your whole turn off with a non-attack action card that's a generic, or even just a Runeblade card, and you play something like Mordred Tide, Read the Runes, well, you're generating insane amounts of tokens. So this is sort of the backbone of what we're planning on doing, how we're planning on generating all of these tokens. Speaking of great non-attack action cards that are generic, Lead the Charge is super solid. Lead the Charge can actually allow you to chain together Read the Runes, because as you see, Read the Runes, any of them, all of them, they don't have go again. So you can play this at the end of your turn, but once you've played this, that's your action point because it does not have go again. So you play like Lead the Charge red, and then you can play a Read the Runes, and it gives it go again. Because Lead the Charge red says the next time you play an action card with cost 0 or greater this turn, gain an action point. And as you see, all of the Read the Runes cost 0. So if you play a red one, like Lead the Charge red, you could play any card after that that's an action card, and you'll gain an action point. If you play the yellow Lead the Charge, of which I have, I believe I have 1 in here, then you can play a card that costs 1 or more, and you gain an action point. And then 2 blues allows you to play a card that costs 2 or more. Plus, the blues are just good to pitch as well. So this is a way that we can chain things together. And that brings me back to the inclusion of the Mage Master Boots. You can do the exact same interaction with Mage Master Boots. You can play a Read the Runes, and or you can pop the Mage Master Boots first, then you can play the Read the Runes, and it would gain Go Again off the Mage Master pop, which is pretty cool. And that is the reason why you have those, and that's why they're so good in the deck. Continuing down this giant stack of actions, we have Oath of the Arknight, and the reason that we play this is not really for the buff, though it does come in handy when you're ready to kill your opponent. We play all of these Oath of the Arknights because it says create a Runechant token. Now they all cost 2, and that is incredibly expensive for making a single Runechant token, but if you're not doing anything else with your turn and you make a single Runechant token, you're doing okay. You're doing okay with this deck so far. It's honestly, it's kind of suspect as well. This whole deck is just a little bit like, does that really work? I don't care. I know, I understand that, but if you have ideas, let me know. So all of these are for creating Runechant tokens. They also make your final attack when you kill your opponent a little bit bigger, which is kind of cool. Speaking of things that you can do with those cards, did I bring that up? I don't know. Become the Arknight allows you to not only just trigger Viserai more, I did it again, it's Viserai. It doesn't just allow you to trigger him more by starting with a different action and then playing this to make a Runechant token. It also allows you to cycle something like an Oath of the Arknight out of your hand so that you can get one of the few attack action cards we have and win the game. This is also just good to toss an attack action if you got one early, put it into the graveyard so that you can then go find like a Mordred Tide. So of course we run 2 of those. Whisper of the Oracle was a late addition right before making this video, and I played around with it, and I really like the 2 red copies of Whisper of the Oracle because after you get to a certain point, after the first few turns and after some bomb turns, you go, okay, now I need to find something to follow this up. I need more Runechant tokens, and I've just used some of my generation. I need to go dip into my graveyard to grab some of those power cards, and this is a way to cycle through your deck using Opt, and it also just allows you to start off your turn and then play a Runeblade card after that to get another Runechant token. Oftentimes that's what this deck does, it just plays something. Okay, now for the spice. We have so many enchanting melodies. Look at all, it's so much. We're gonna play so many flutes. Look at her. Oh wow, that was so out of focus. Wait, we gotta get this. We gotta do it. This is it. This is the moment. You gotta see the flute. You are gonna play so many flutes. Look, all the flutes. They're just gonna go, okay? We're gonna play all these flutes. Now, outside of playing all of those actions, we're just gonna play a lot of defense. We're literally not gonna do anything except build Runechants and play defense. And what's a good way to play defense against anything? Well, I mean, it's not a bad way. Enchanting Melody, because it's an aura, it's also an action card. It costs 2, so it's kind of expensive. It says Go Again. That's a good thing. It says if you would be dealt damage, instead destroy Enchanting Melody and prevent 4 of that. At the beginning of your end phase, destroy Enchanting Melody unless you have played a non-attack action card this turn. We will be playing non-attack action cards often, so we won't be destroying these of our own volition very often unless you just get a terrible hand. You don't necessarily want to stack the board up with all of these because I would imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong, tell me in a comment below, if I play a lot of these onto the board and I let some damage go through, do they all pop to try and prevent that, or do I get to select? I don't think I get to select to pop that one and then save these, right? I don't think so. Nevertheless, we run a lot of these because defense and because it's a way to start off your turn to make another Runechant token each turn. So we play 2 reds because it defends for 4. We play 2 yellows and we play a single blue. That's all of the actions, and that is an insane amount of actions. I get it, I know, but that's the start of it. Now, the rest of the deck is pretty straightforward and simple. Let's talk about the defense side of things. We play a Sink Below. We play a Fate Foreseen. Sink Below to cycle cards from your hand to the bottom of your deck. Again, cycling is our secondary game plan. Once we make a lot of Runechants, we just cycle for more abilities to make Runechants. Speaking of, Fate Foreseen is another defense reaction that allows us to cycle using the Opt effect. And then we play a boatload of Reduced to Runechants. We play this many Reduced to Runechants. We have like a rainbow going on. Look at this. We got 2 reds, a yellow, and a blue. And this is a defense reaction that is a Runeblade card, and it says reduce Runechant, cost 1 less to play for each Runechant you control, so you don't have to pay for this often, which is great. It also says create a Runechant token, which is also great. So why not play a bunch of these? Now, what we could do is just like swap these out for more of those because they are going to end up being pretty cheap. But I kept these in because I like the cycle and I just like a little bit of variety. It's fun to tech in things and tech things out when you realize it doesn't work or works. That's experimentation. Speaking of good cards, why do I always do that? I don't understand why I do that. Whatever. Sigil of Solace, 2 reds. Gaining 6 life in a 20 health matchup is solid. Gorganian Tome. Now, I do want to say, I should jump back. Playing this does not start off a Runechant chain because it's an instant and not an action. So you can't play this and then play a Runeblade card to get a proc on Viserai. Gorganian Tome draws you a card. It replaces itself. Oftentimes it just does that, but it's a 0 and it starts off your chain. So I have a lot of cards that do that in this deck, and I'm happy with it. And finally, we have come to the stack of attacks. There they are. My stack of attacks. Oh, wait, I think I'm missing one. Did I? Oh, yep, I totally put one right here. Let's start with this one first. Dread Triptych. Dread Triptych is a 3-cost Majestic. It attacks for 4, and it says if you've played a non-attack action card this turn, you create a Runechant token. It says if you've dealt arcane damage this turn, create a Runechant token. It says if Dread Triptych hits, create a Runechant token. So it can create a lot of Runechant tokens. But oftentimes you've hopefully won the game or taken your opponent down to very little life by playing an attack. So you don't really care about the Runechant tokens on the back end of this card. Believe it or not, this card is really good to pitch, which is crazy to say. So it's one of the reasons why it is a 1-of in the deck. I also don't have 2 of them, otherwise I'd probably have 2 in here. Arknight Ascendancy is insane. This is the card that you go and fetch for with the Become the Arknight so that you can win the game. You go get yourself an Arknight Ascendancy. It costs 6, but it's reduced that cost based on how many Runechants you have, and you're going to have like 12 to 15 Runechants whenever I've messed around with this. So it costs 0, and it attacks for 5, and it has Dominate, and you just hit them in the face for like 12 with Runechants. So yeah, this is a really good attack. I don't have 2 of them in here, even though I do have 2 copies, because I wanted to play Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath, because it's shiny. Okay, that's why. Also because it's likely going to be free as well, since we make so many Runechants, and it attacks for 9. That also seems pretty fun. And finally, I have a single copy of Blue Meet and Greet. That's the least spicy way to end a deck tech. Why? Why do I have this card? Well, because Become the Arknight requires you to discard an attack action card to draw a non-attack action card from your deck. And if I can discard a Blue Meet and Greet, then I'm okay with that. Also, I can pitch a Blue Meet and Greet for 3 resources, and that's pretty solid. So that is the weirdest Runeblade OTK deck I've come up with thus far. So the goal with this deck would be to just literally defend for forever until you make enough Runechants to win the game. What do you think about this behemoth? What is your opinion on this this bucket of cards here? Let me know in a comment below. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you enjoyed watching me ramble through this deck tech, then you should definitely consider leaving a like and a subscribe, and I'll be doing more updates with this deck and other decks in the future. Thank you to those that have already supported. We're up to 2410, and we're trying to push to 2415. I have this deep down goal to hit 2500 by the end of the year, but that's ambitious. We'll see how close we get nevertheless. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.